Yeah, I know. But it's probably everyone is struggling with coming in. Okay. Is there representation? Oh, Super. Are we already live? Or before I start making jokes? Good morning, everyone. I'm glad that some of you made it here this morning through the mazes. And I'm sure some of you had already very interesting discussions with people in front of you in the line and behind you. I overheard interesting discussions about the GST negotiations that I would not have had otherwise. Anyway, welcome. We are very happy to have a, a start of what we hope is going to be a longer conversation that maybe some of you want to take with you and have with other people. And that is a line of kind of a big picture look at the landscape of where we are. I want to be very quick. My name is Cecil Haferkamp. I work with the UN Sustainable Development Solutions Network. We have a wonderful panel of currently three speakers. That might change in the course of the next half hour, I hope. But I don't want to talk much. I will, if someone can go to the next slide, just give you a quick overview. Oh, a quick overview of our fantastic speakers. We'll ask Pablo to do a little bit of a framing and a welcome because, of course, from the NDC partnership perspective, that's what you do all week. You're looking at this landscape. We hope to still have with us Roxanne Donegan. Oh, sorry. Yes. Wonderful. Welcome. And you're going to go first, so I'm glad that you're relaxed already. Wonderful. And then Zoe Norgate, who is on her way. We have David Kaluba, who's also on his way here. Uh, and this is not the most updated slide. My apologies. Marta Eckert from the German Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Climate Action. And then last but not least, we have Yamid Danier, who is going to be data. She has been for many years involved at all levels in negotiations, in the background, in the foreground. And so we're very happy to have her help us have a really interesting discussion today with all of you. So maybe let's see what the next slide is now. If you can. Oh, I'm in control. Apparently not enough. Anyway, thank you so much. I'm asking Pablo to come maybe forward and just help us frame what this discussion is meant to be.
Well, first of all, thank you for joining us. Welcome to the NDC Partnership Pavilion. Um, this is a conversation that started in another long line back in Nairobi, Africa Climate Week and Summit. uh, The line for an hour or so, and we had a long conversation about what we're seeing in terms of the proliferation of initiatives and what we needed to do to effectively uh, strengthen collaboration instead of diluting it. So thank you for following up, and we've been working on this for a few weeks, months, and I think, as you said, this is the beginning of a conversation that I think we should take forward. My name is Pablo Vieira. I am the global director of the NDC Partnership. Um, and I would like to thank Cecil and Sustainable Development Solutions Network for organizing this with us and for really spending time in thinking about this very important topic, which is the implications of the proliferation of global initiatives to accelerate climate action. The NDC Partnership is a global coalition that brings more countries, including developed and developing countries, and almost 100 international institutions. Many of our members, countries and institutions, are part of or are responsible for creating and launching initiatives. And this is something that we have actually discussed in our steering committee because we feel it's an important element of finding complementarity in terms of instead of duplicity of efforts. Uh, Very relevant. And when we come to COP, and those of us who have been in COPs, seeing the size of this COP is really scary in terms of how much is going on and how little complementarity and collaboration is actually happening on the ground. So I think it's a perfect space and place to have this conversation. Unfortunately, ideally, we would have more people listening in, but, but that's fine. Um, Countries advance their climate goals. Governments come to us with specific requests in terms of what they need to advance their climate actions, and specifically how to translate their NDCs into actionable policies, projects, programs. And based on those requests, what we do is we offer a tailored package of support from our more than 200 members to support those actions. We try to minimize the burden on the country by bringing together as much as possible partners, development partners, countries, so that countries can have one conversation instead of multiple conversations at the same time about advancing their goals. Um, this has allowed us also to understand from the point of view of countries, and of course today we have two countries speaking about this, how they see, the growing ecosystem of initiatives and sources of support. And this gives us a unique uh, insight into what's happening and today's topic. We're definitely living on an era of proliferation of climate initiatives. We counted how many were launched in Glasgow, and I can't remember the number, but it was like over 100 new initiatives were found. And just to be clear, this is not about complaining about more support being available, because the need for support is very clear and we need as much support as possible. This is more about how support is delivered. And I think that there's two critical elements here that I think are important for us to discuss and for the framing of this conversation. First, we need to make sure that countries are in the driver's seat when we talk about mobilization of support for climate action. We need to make sure that countries are empowered to leverage the international support that they need to advance their climate targets based on their needs and priorities. So the agenda needs to be set by the governments based on their priorities. Now, we have NDCs, which are contributions, which unlocked the negotiations in the lead up to Paris because it gave the ownership to the countries to determine how they would advance, and the speed and the responsibility and their willingness to advance climate. And maybe it's not the ideal mechanism because we're seeing we're not going fast enough, but it's the only one that. So building on that, we need to make sure that support for countries is based also on that, on the ownership of the countries, on the leadership of the countries, and on what they determine is their priority, and not the other way around. Dominate the area, and this is less represented, and therefore they have less influence in decision making, in the governance structure of these initiatives, and in terms of access to the resources that are made available. At the NDC partnership, what we try to do is we support country-led climate action. We're supporting more than 90 developing countries around the world. This goes from major emerging economies all the way to so um, this is done through more than 50 NDC implementation plans that have been developed to be the framework for collaboration amongst the different stakeholders within and across the partnership, but also beyond the partnership. And we have supported also through this collaborative approach more than 80 countries in raising ambition and aligning their NDCs amongst the different initiatives. And more than coordination, there needs to be focal points for initiatives like the NDC partnership are the same focal points for the UNFCCC. They're the ones that talk to the different other initiatives, to the different NGOs, to the UN organizations, with the MDBs, with the UN organizations, with the different initiatives, with the donors, to have the same conversation. And that becomes a huge burn, a lot of time just spent talking to partners about what we need and how to mobilize that support, and even pushing back in terms of it is my agenda, not your agenda, that we need to drive forward. So what we try to do here at the NDC partnership is that we more than 180 partners, members and non-members, $7 billion in technical assistance, leveraged over almost $10 billion towards on these climate plans, all in a collaborative effort. We've done this through support packages that bundle resources from multiple partners, minimizing the coordination burden on the developing countries. As you can see here, what we believe in is that by acting together, we can achieve more. So at the partnership, we emphasize the need to act with speed and scale. But often what we're seeing is that initiatives themselves are proliferating at speed and scale instead of the collaboration and the cooperation amongst the different stakeholders. So given our urgent need for action, um, I think that the idea here is for us institutions, civil society, philanthropy, double down on well-coordinated efforts that can drive meaningful climate action that is consistent with the Paris Agreement, and to strengthen the collaboration, strengthen the complementarity of the different initiatives. And if you're thinking of something that is missing, great, we need it. But make sure that you're talking. Ah, yes, I'm closing now. So, but we can move. uh, This is an informal conversation. This is a conversation amongst friends. So we need to collectively focus on delivering transformational change at speed and scale, available resources in the most effective way. It's called international cooperation. It's not called international competition. And we should do it. No, it really needs to be cooperation. It needs to be collaboration. It needs to be complementarity. And we at the NDC Partnership are here to support that and to work closely with you in finding the best ways of moving forward with efficiency in terms of the use of limited resources. So, station and to see how we move this forward beyond today. So, thank you again. And Yamit, please.
Well, thank you very much. Hi, everyone. It's very special for me to be here for this event, among these panelists. And I had the pleasure to work with Zoe when I was in the UK delegation, very closely with the Germans on accountability. And I joined the NDC partnership to try to bridge, the international negotiations to what's happening on the ground, top-down bonding as in an integrated manner. So, so those are, the different focuses that I wanted to highlight on the means of implementation, where we can do better on capacity building, institutional. We need to see more university involved. We need to see more statistical organization involved. We need to bring even information, including media communicators, involved into those NDCs. And we need technology transfer even more. Now, the last point for me is a connection to sustainable development. Um, there's been, I think, developing countries, and especially the most vulnerable, have been very consistent in making sure that climate finance, climate cooperation is not at the expense of sustainable development. Within the NDC partnership, there's been a lot of effort to bring the ministers of finance, the ministers of planning to create that integration. However, so we some plans can they be more than the usual plans and more like the Marshall plans, revolutionary World War II? So there's still a lot of questions and a lot of reflection. And I have to say, even from the global south, on what those national Marshall Plan people a little bit more in country. And then, there's the stakeholders and involvement. I think the NDC partnership has started to bring a lot, and I know that Zoe, with the Germans, I think the panel actually represented the effort to actually bring public investment with private investment. Um, I think we need to do a little bit more in bringing philanthropic organizations. So I hold myself accountable as well on how to create the right tools and things side.
The sectoral NDC focused on just energy, but it was now broadened to include forestry and land use. This reflects and a move to ban in energy plant 2627. So Jamaica is actually implementing our NDC, and I know that we are probably ahead of some of our counterparts in the Caribbean. So that is also, well, I will identify that as an issue. An updated implementation plan was done in 2021 that details the progress to date and the barriers and solutions. And of course, some of the barriers that Yamid mentioned came out of that, such as low stakeholder coordination, monitoring, and compliance, and commitment, that's reliant on public funding. So this is where the DBJ, the Development Bank of Jamaica, comes in. We have recently been accredited by the Green Climate Fund. The maximum we can now implement large projects over 250 million US. So we received that accreditation in July. So we'll be working with our partners, not only locally, but internationally in developing what we call a blue-green facility that will also help to fill some of these gaps that were identified in the NDC implementation plan. The World Resource Institute identified some gaps, and we are also in agreement with some of far advanced with some of the initiatives, but persons are not aware. So that must be communicated locally, regionally, and internationally. And I saw by acting together, we achieve more. And I do believe that this is true. And added action or distraction, I still.
Great, thank you. And also apologies for the society. It's understandable that we have a wealth of different organizations and initiatives happening. So on one level, I think, actually that's a good thing. It's a reflection that everyone wants to do something about this. And I think that's where some of the proliferation comes from. Take an example, sitting where I do, managing UK climate finance. A few years back, we had the International Energy Agency come to us and say, we really want to be able to offer technical assistance to emerging economies on renewable energy and the energy transition. Can you fund us to do this? And we had the discussion internally. Well, we're funding ESMAP, but the World Bank is doing energy sector assistance. We're, funding IRENA. We're doing our bilateral. Do we need a fourth, fifth? And then we've reflected again, well, this is the International Energy Agency. Can't offer any advice on clean energy. Of course, they all want to be part of this. They all want to be doing something and showing. To help with this need rather than creating a new thing. So have shiny new things to announce. I think through the partnership, we have a great platform to do this job of trying to get everybody to think about proliferation treaty. Do we need something similar for the climate space where you're only allowed to create a new initiative if you have done the checklist of does anything else already do?
Told I should stand more here because of the camera. Thank you so much, Zoe. And I think you nicely explained that we're facing a dilemma. It's not a problem as such that needs fixing. It's a more
concrete ones, adaptation and mitigation, and some of those big items in there. Renewable energy is one of those.
National communications, inventories, and there's implementation, and the global stocktake is supposed to get not, how we can do better. And listening to all the panelists, there's as much value in. I think Zoe put it well. Actually, there's a lot of legitimity